who has been chosen by you, the graduates, to deliver a farewell address to all of you, his classmates.
Good afternoon. And how are you all doing? Sorry, I had to do a Professor Taylor impersonation. My name's Jeff Zanchelli. The manual says Daniel Zanchelli. Julie came up to me all frantic. She's like, Jeff, I'm really sorry. We got your name wrong in the manual. I'm like, what's it say? She says, Daniel Zanchelli. I'm like, that's it? That's all it says? I've been called way worse than that, Julie. Don't worry. And it's only fitting that I was called Daniel because a few months ago, when we were at Professor Reynolds' house, we were drinking some wine, making fun of each other like we usually do. I turned to Dan Porter. I said, you know what, Dan? You're my fourth favorite Dan. Behind Dan Reynolds, Dan Franz, Dan Marino. Guess what, Dan? Now you're my fifth favorite Dan. This Daniel Zanchelli sounds pretty cool. I'm up here today because Dan Porter actually nominated me as class speaker, and like any true Chicagoan, he hacked into the system and voted 200 times for me. Just kidding. I'm up here because Dan Porter did nominate me, and the rest of my friends in the class of 2013 picked me as speaker. I use the word friends instead of classmates because after 3 years of studying together, hanging out together, playing intramural sports together, and yes, drinking together, that's exactly what I see when I look into the audience, a group of my friends. So thank you for letting me stand up here and represent you today. It's a great honor in life to have the respect of your peers. Although I'm sure a few of you didn't pick me out of respect. I'm sure a few of you chose me because you wanted to see me stand up here dressed like Harry Potter while I make a fool of myself. Either way, I hope this speech lives up to its expectations. Speaking of the class of 2013, this is a great day. We have Governor Thompson on hand. Thank you. We have 100% participation from the student body. Who would have known the only way to get everyone to come to class was to hand out diplomas? Actually, someone told me beforehand a few students aren't here, so that kills that joke. You know, they say lawyers are very competitive, and based off my few years in the profession, I definitely think that's true. And the NIU College of Law is no different. You may not always know it when you attend class, because it's such a collegial and cooperative environment. But the student body, the class of 2013 is really competitive. If you don't believe me, just come to one of our intramural basketball games in the Law League. Some of the most quiet students in the class are notorious for throwing elbows, cursing out referees, and throwing their basketball shoes across the gym after being ejected. I'm not going to name names. But seriously, I mention this because I say they hate to lose. They hate to lose not just in basketball. They hate to lose in mock trial advocacy, appellate advocacy, kicking field goals for the NIU football team, yeah, Klimovsky. They hate to lose in all aspects of life. And it's that competitive nature that I'm confident will be the catalyst behind many of the great successes this class was surely to achieve. Wow, it's weird talking about you guys as graduates. I know it sounds cliche, but it seems like yesterday we were just arriving on campus for our first week of orientation. I had no idea what to expect in law school after quitting my sales job to pursue a degree in law. But orientation was definitely going to calm my nerves and prepare me for the school year ahead. I don't know who's in charge of orientation, but I'm sorry, I don't know how learning about the 3 branches of government, how a bill becomes a law, and taking a fake class in federal income taxation is going to calm anybody down if they're about to start law school. A group viewing of My Cousin Vinny, A Few Good Men, and The Devil's Advocate would have probably been a better thing to do, and definitely would have been a better way to break the ice. So heading into my first week of class, I did not know what to expect in law school. I was really nervous, but I figured once I had a few classes, I'd figure it out. I'd understand what law is all about. Well, after the first few weeks in class, in section 1, we learned about Russian roulette and criminal law, hairy hands and contracts, Professor Nasser's childhood in Iowa throwing spears at each other in torts. We learned about an international shoe salesman in civil procedure and had to get free candy and basic legal research. The reason that after my second week of law school, I go to my good friend Tony Parker. I said, Tony, did we make a big mistake quitting our sales jobs to come back to law school? He says, Jeff, don't get me wrong, I'd love a commission check right now and go play golf. But trust me, my girlfriend Lauren's a 2L at Dayton, and she said it gets better as time goes on. I say we ride this one out. Thanks, Tony. And Lauren, wherever you are, don't ever tell me Tony doesn't follow your advice. P.S. I can't wait for your wedding in August. I mentioned where we were at as 1Ls and how far we've come for two reasons. First, to show exactly how far we really have come as a class. We have kids in our class that have successfully tried cases for the state's attorneys, the public defender's office. We have students in our class that have prestigious law clerkships for judges all across the state of Illinois. We have students that have jobs in private firms of all different sizes that are drafting memos and successful motions on a weekly basis. We even have two students that had an externship down in Springfield. I have no idea what they did while they were down there, but it sounded good, so I threw it in there. The second reason I mention this is a testament to what an amazing job the professor sitting behind me did these last 3 years. To quote to talk about what Governor Thompson said, he mentioned the Ivy League, but who needs the Ivy League when you have professors like this? I would bet a good deal of money, no matter what law school you went to in America, you will not find a group of professors more accomplished or distinguished in their respective fields of law than the professors sitting behind me. We are indebted as a class to you guys for all the lessons you have taught us. From the beginning, you guys were patient with us. You never gave up on us, and you never yelled at us. You never walked out of class, with the exception of Professor Reynolds. If there's any incoming 1Ls out there, take my advice. When your contracts professor asks you who is suing who, for the sake of your classmates' well-being and for the professor's blood pressure, please do not answer, there's a plaintiff suing a defendant. If you look closely at Professor Reynolds' right hand, you will still see some drywall from the support beam. From the support beam he slammed in room 186 after that answer. So please take that advice. In all seriousness, thank you guys. Our degrees that we're receiving today wouldn't be worth the piece of paper they're printed on without the lessons you taught us. Thank you to my wife Amanda for the support these past 3 years, both emotionally and financially. Who would have known that a first grade teacher's salary, you could be my sugar mama? Without you, I wouldn't have made it. Without you here today, it would be nearly half as much. I love you and you're my best friend. To my mom, thanks for encouraging me to go back to law school. I would not have quit my job if I did not know I had your support and your encouragement. To my brother Chris, I always looked up to as an older brother. Thanks for always raising the bar so high. To Professor Taylor and Professor Reynolds, it's an honor to call you guys my mentor, but it's even more important to me to call you both friends. And finally, to my dad, my role model, and my hero, thank you for showing me that with a desire to succeed, a commitment to learning, and a work ethic that is second to nobody's, who can accomplish anything in this life. Real quick, 3 quick lessons my dad taught me growing up. They're simple. I'm sure you've all heard them before, but I think they're worth reiterating before we go as we start our new careers. First, integrity is everything. He told my brother Chris and me, you gotta have integrity, without which nothing else justifies employment, friendship, or anything else in life with any real value. I know this class has integrity. That was apparent from day one. But as our professional responsibility professors always reminded us, as attorneys, it's inevitable that we'll be faced with difficult challenges and tough choices, with the easy one not always being the right one. So just remember, integrity trumps everything else. Second, never be afraid to fail. He'd always tell me, Jeff, it's okay to fail. Never be afraid to fail. He'd say, it's okay to fail if, and only if, you can look in the mirror and say you've given it your all and you've worked as hard as you can. In life, when you give anything short of your very best, then you're cheating yourself. And then that's when failure is unacceptable. But if you do give it your all and you happen to fail, there's no problem with that. The best part of that lesson is when you do give it your all, you guys are talented enough that you probably won't fail and you will succeed. Third, perseverance. When life is going great, things are easy, that's when life is the easiest. And that's when everyone can do it. When tough times get tough, and obstacles are in your way, that's when you gotta work the hardest, fight the hardest. When we were down on ourselves, my brother Chris and I, and things were going bad, like school or athletics, he'd say, hey, this is where you gotta get off the mat, this is where you gotta fight harder. He'd tell us this line: adversity introduces a man to himself. Adversity introduces a man to himself. Remember those words as we start our career, because I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there are tough times ahead for all of us. And it's what we do in those with those challenges that will define who we are. All right, I have two quotes before I go. You may be wondering why I have two quotes. You also may be wondering why the hell I'm still speaking. I think I've been up here close to 10 minutes, but bear with me. I have two quotes because after I was chosen as speaker, one of the other nominees, Keith Dent, came running up to me, my good friend. He said, Jeff, you have to use this quote. And I said, and anyone that knows Keith knows the nicest guy in the world, but politics is his real love in life. He's the most passionate Democrat I've ever been around. He's the only guy that can turn a conversation about LeBron versus Kobe into a full-fledged debate over gun control and the national debt. So when he said he had a quote for me, I was a little hesitant. I didn't want to get too political up here, and we don't see eye to eye on a few issues. So I said, I'll think about it, Keith. He said, no, if you use this quote, I'll buy your drinks after graduation. Now I was listening. Okay, Keith, who's the quote? Abraham Lincoln. My eyes lit up. I smiled and looked at him. I said, let me get this straight. You're going to buy my drinks to stand up here in front of this large audience, in front of all my classmates, to quote a Republican? Okay. And the good news is, President Lincoln's one of the few Republicans I can safely quote today without fear of being red flagged by the IRS. Sorry, Keith. Here's the quote. In all seriousness, as Keith told me, it's the 150th year anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. So who better to quote than President Lincoln himself? The leading rule for the lawyer, as for the man of every other calling, is diligence. Leave nothing for tomorrow, which can be done today. Finally, my quote. I decided to quote Vince Lombardi. I know, weird, an Italian standing up here quoting Vince Lombardi. I had to. The difference between a successful person and others is not a lack of strength, not a lack of knowledge, but rather a lack of will. The only place success comes before work is in the dictionary. Good luck to the class of 2013. I know you don't need it. To the professors, again, thank you very much. Thank you.
Jeff, a.k.a. David. Professor Reynolds was voted Professor of the Year